Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your new week out there so far. Here to bring you the latest information that we have on a few things in this morning's video. The first thing we will cover is the tropics, as unfortunately things have uptrended overnight into this morning as far as model guidance on something developing here in the Caribbean in the same area that Rafael developed, and we know that Rafael became a major hurricane, so we need to watch this, and that's exactly what we will continue to do. I know I'm tired of talking about the tropics also. Here we are just about in mid-November, and we're still breaking it down, but technically it is hurricane season still. So we will get very detailed on that. After we get done covering the tropics, we will break down some updated information on this pattern change I've been watching over the last few days. And we will continue to talk about this, of course, as we get closer. Now, if we trend away from anything significant, I would say, then of course we will back off talking about it. But I really think we're going to have some wild weather, not this week, but maybe next week, especially as we get into the mid to later portion of next week. And I know that's pretty far out, but we will speak on it in this video. Don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So after we get done covering that, of course, we will break down the weather for your Monday. Pretty quiet weather day to kickstart your work week, by the way, but we'll break it down for you folks. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Speaking of the comments, I am very behind. I'll get caught up with everything this afternoon. You guys know the weekends are pretty crazy in the West household. Just don't have a lot of time to stop and acknowledge those comments over the weekend, but I will get caught up with them this afternoon. So let's get rocking and rolling. So let's make sure this is going to work for us, and it is. We're good to go. So that's what's left over of Rafael up here. It's pretty much getting shredded apart in the Gulf of Mexico. And by the time we get into this evening, I don't even think you'll see much of anything in the Gulf of Mexico. We are watching this area once again, which is where Rafael got going. The next name is Sally, I believe. Yeah, it's Sally. So if we're going to get another tropical system, that'll be the name of it. And we're watching this area once again. Nothing going on right now, but some energy could kind of drift into this area mixed with just other pieces of energy. And eventually something could get going in this general circled area with the X in it that I just drew. Could this drift this way? It could. Could it drift right into Central America? It absolutely could. Could it actually go kind of down here? Yes, it could. So we got to watch this, because a lot of times things that develop down here do drift north. So we're going to break it down. But this is the area we are watching. So just when we go over all the model guidance, kind of keep your eyes down here. So let's get this back off. Let's keep rolling here. Nothing going on right now, though. It's pretty quiet. All right, so the National Hurricane Center has dubbed this an area of interest. So it's not like this is just Mitch or some random person talking about it. The National Hurricane Center now has a 30% chance, which I believe they bumped it up from a 20 to 30% chance overnight for something developing down here in the Caribbean, which is that same area I just drew. Now, development means into a depression or a named storm, which is Sally. Okay, so I do think if model guidance continues to show what it's been showing like last night into the overnight hours into this morning, that we're going to get a bump up to a medium chance, which will bump this to a 30 to 40 or 50 or 60% chance. It'll go in orange if it does that. So, in fact, let's see if we have another update. We do not. I'll try to go back to this by the end of the video. We're about to have a new update from the National Hurricane Center, and they might bump this from a 30 to a 40. But let's go over all the model guidance. So we're going to start all this off Friday morning, November the 15th, okay? The end of this week, pretty much, okay? So the GFS has a 1,000 millibar low pressure already right here off the coastline of Central America, okay? Closer to Central America than it is, say, Jamaica or Cuba. We're going to keep this going in time. Now, this is going to show some wackiness, some weird stuff, all right? So with the GFS, it kind of drifts this back east, continues to strengthen it into a sub 1,000 millibar low. We get into Sunday, hangs out around the same area, starts to throw a lot of moisture into Jamaica. It's a 989 millibar low, tropical storm, weak hurricane. And then it actually looks like it makes a landfall into Central America around early next week. I mean, we're talking a week from now, right? Could be talking about this for a while, unfortunately. And then it finally picks up, some northern, kind of starts to head north a little bit. And we get into Tuesday morning, and it starts to pick up some forward speed. 990 millibar low, splits the gap between the Yucatan and Cuba. And look at this thing. strengthening as a hurricane into the southern Gulf of Mexico, and actually deepens this pretty low. A lot of weird stuff. You see a big cold front coming down into the southern plains, and we have a decently strong hurricane plowing right into southwest Florida about 10 days from now. 10 days. Now, if you look at the run prior to this, it has just a weak tropical system way down here. So that just goes to show you that we're having a lot of model flip-flopping, okay? So please don't look at this, and I always say this, don't look at this and tell everybody and your cousin's brother's dog, uncle, that a hurricane is going to hit Florida in 10 days. Please don't look at this and do that. No reason to freak anybody out right now, but I do think there's reason to believe that something is going to develop down here in the Caribbean. Okay, there's no real point in going past this. It continues to do weird stuff after that. The thing that's concerning to me, or I would say perks up my confidence that something is going to get going down here, is the euro just went crazy with this last night. Okay, same thing Friday morning, 1,003 millibar low. It does kind of what the GFS does, kind of dances around in one area down here in the Caribbean and actually drifts back east. Okay, gradually strengthens this very slowly. We get into next Sunday, next Sunday. I guess you could technically say this coming Sunday. Okay, because yeah, Sunday was yesterday, today's Monday. Right, Mitch. Okay, so this is the 17th of Sunday the 17th. Man, I'm struggling. It's Monday morning. But we keep this going. It deepens this into just about a Category 1 hurricane, and then it just hooks a left and starts to strengthen. 970 millibar low, 7 to 8 days from now, splits the gap between the Yucatan and Cuba, gets very close to making landfall, close to a major hurricane in the western tip of Cuba, and does exactly what the GFS does, except hooks it a little bit further south, and then splits the gap between the Florida Keys and Cuba. It goes 10 days from now, and we have a strong hurricane between Cuba and Florida, and what looks like it's heading right in towards the Bahamas. That's 2 runs. The reliable GFS and the euro. And remember, the euro likes to really keep things conservative in the tropics. Now, what about the Euro AI model? Okay, it kind of keeps this as just a weak tropical system. We go about a week from today. Doesn't show much of anything. Kind of throws a slug of moisture into the Gulf of Mexico. But to make a long story short, it never gets anything going. Okay, so the Euro AI model does not show anything. Now, the Canadian does. We'll start this about a week from today, okay, 7 days out, and it kind of throws a tropical storm into the Gulf of Mexico and then throws a slug of moisture into the southeast coastline, basically the bend of Florida, about 10 days from now. So kind of takes the same track as the GFS and the Euro, a little bit further north, but it's not as aggressive as far as strength. So there's just some things we watch, and I'll go on and look at the Icon model too, might as well, and let's just go entire week out. And same thing, has a tropical storm emerging off the Yucatan Peninsula about a week from today. So we need to watch this for sure. The GEFS ensemble makes up 21 members. All right, has a lot of members down here, which tells us there's a pretty stout sign of something getting going as early as later this week. And then, we get into Friday. That signal continues to strengthen. And then some of these members that do develop get quite strong. This is in the middle of this coming weekend. Pretty big spread. Some are over here, some are over here. But a lot of these members are hurricane strength. We got to watch Jamaica. As far east as, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Definitely Cuba. And look how these members really split. But a lot of them do head north as a decent in strength hurricane, tropical system. Okay. And then, we'll go about 10 days out. And, we got members everywhere. It looks like it's August or September. And what's wild to me is the Euro ensemble, the EPS, is very loud. This is for Friday morning. That is a solid signal that we're going to have a named storm in the Caribbean by Friday. Now, what does it do after that into this weekend? Same thing with the GFS and its ensembles. It kind of drifts back east. The signal does, but look at the spread. We got a couple of these members that are major hurricanes, hanging out around Jamaica. getting back here and just affecting the greater Antilles. We got some that are just hanging closer to Central America, and then all of them hook that left, right? And then they just kind of get into the Gulf of Mexico, and we just got to watch. The signal has abruptly increased for tropical activity in the Caribbean, and then kind of just weird steering currents. I mean, we're getting close to Thanksgiving, for crying out loud. It just gets weird down here. Now, the upper wind pattern, sea surface temperatures, I don't have that pulled up, but it's still in the 80s down here in the Caribbean. Okay, still warm. That's why people take vacations down here in the Caribbean deep into the year, because, I mean, the sea surface temperatures stay relatively warm all year around. They do cool a little bit in the winter, but not substantially. Now, this is the GEFS ensemble from this morning, okay? It kind of combines all the members and creates one average low, which that'll be the case. It's not like you're going to have 21 low pressures in the Caribbean, but this is your average millibar of all those lows, and it puts it right here. Now, that's not really the thing we're focusing in on here. This is winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere, folks. I'm talking about 35, 40,000 feet up in the air. And what you'll notice is, well, what I'll show you first is these low pressure in the northern hemisphere spins cyclonically, just like this, right? But on top of this storm system, air is being dispersed out like this. In some cases, like in the opposite direction. Okay, so you got air being pushed out like this, like this. Gets kind of weird on this side of the storm. But in general, a lot of air is being dispersed outward. So just to make a long story short, the environment in the Caribbean supports a lot of rising air and a lot of disbursement of air, divergence aloft, which is going to create a better environment for this tropical system and allow it to develop. So we'll talk about that more and I would say in more deep detail when it's needed. But just the environment favors tropical activity still down here. Definitely a solid late push to hurricane season. And I do think we're going to end up getting Sally out of this, guys. I really do. Let's speak a little bit about the pattern change. Now, the stuff that I show you, just like the tropics, please don't get it engraved into your mind and your thoughts that, this is exactly what's going to happen. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I'll put some posts sometimes, and I don't put a lot of context behind it. If I don't do that, it's because it's not worth getting very detailed about. It's kind of me wish casting in a way. Now, of course, I'm not going to do that to the degree where I make y'all believe for 100% fact that something's going to happen. But of course, I think I've told you guys that I am watching the 22nd to the 26th time frame because I'm going to the mountains in Tennessee, North Carolina. So I am pulling for cold air and some freak early season winter weather event. So I'm definitely watching it. But anyways, outside of my biased watching it because of my vacation, I think it's a time frame to watch. So let's start off by talking about the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, the 18th to the 24th. If you watched yesterday's video, it had just solid red and orange over this entire area. Okay, I was kind of telling you guys that I thought that they would start to kind of let some of that loose here, and I think it would go to more of a slight chance of above average temperatures or maybe a near normal. Well, that's happening across the central U.S. now. We're starting to lose some of those above average chances of, higher chances of above average temperatures. So 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, still above average temperatures predicted, but I think that even this will start to change, especially across the south. So let's talk about ridging and troughing. Blue is troughing, lower pressure. The orange and red on your screen, that is ridging, higher pressure. Okay. Higher pressure associated with calmer conditions most of the time, okay? Not always the case. You got a ridge and you got a cold high pressure. But we'll go into that when we need to, okay? And then the trough, normally in the blue, normally associated with unsettled weather, brings cold air, etc. So let's start this all off by not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday, the 19th. You see this thing right here? I think this is going to do something wild across the country. And we're going to keep this moving. Drops this big trough. It also shows what would be Sally down here, which we've already showed you. Just weird stuff. This trough would actually help aid into probably steering this somewhat. We'll see. But you get this big trough that basically dumps down into the southern U.S. Probably has multiple storm systems associated with it. This thing sort of amplifies, connects. You got what looks like a a connection to a trough in Canada, which would dump more cold air down. Now, we're getting pretty far out, folks, 294 hours out. But man, there is a lot of wild weather could have happened with this. We'll just leave it at that. Okay, a lot of cold air would come down. Okay, there would probably be multiple storm systems associated with this trough of low pressure ejecting across the country. You see this little area right here? That's a low pressure. And we'll talk about 500 millibar Vort energy when we need to. We're not going to get deep into that right now, but I think that'll be a heavy topic getting into next week. You want to talk about nerding out with winter like we do with the tropics? Ooh, buckle up. But man, I know this is far out, and this breaks my rule of not going past 240 hours out. But man, this shows a lot of craziness the several days leading up to Thanksgiving. It does. Okay, and then the Euro really wants to drop this trough more so, I would say, in the central U.S. But I think if you were to continue to keep this run going, it would do something weird across the eastern U.S. And, you know, if you look at the Euro ensemble, kind of shows the same signal. There's that area of unsettled weather. And then it kind of amplifies over the central to east central U.S. And then there's just a signal for a dip in the jet, unsettled weather, cooler than average temperatures in the eastern U.S. A lot of people like to ask me, especially on social media, what does the blue mean, Mitch? Does it mean snow? No. The blue means lower pressure, which means unsettled weather. And if you can think about, that's not a shot. If you can think, it came off kind of wrong. But if you kind of think about it, you know, when you get a lot of unsettled weather, especially in the fall and winter and even spring, it seems like the day after it's colder. Okay, not in the summer, it's different. Okay, but in the other seasons, it's colder. That's because typically unsettled weather moves in, and then a cold front moves in behind it, and then a cooler air mass moves in. So typically when you see the blue, you normally have some sort of cold front that follows. What about the Euro AI model? Next Tuesday morning, the 19th, drops a big trough in the western to central U.S., probably going to bring a lot of unsettled weather, and then the trough does kind of what the GFS does, really amplifies. You got this new trough that emerges with this other extension here. I mean, it just gets wild. You got energy pivoting around the trough here, and then it really just amplifies over the eastern U.S. and just could do some wild stuff. Like this would bring a big shot of cold air for certain areas. And, you know, I know that probably is not appealing for people to, it's hard for people to understand. It's hard enough for me to explain it. Sometimes I wonder why I'm explaining this. Should I just get very, spend a lot of time and get just nerd out on you guys, or should I just keep it cut and dry? But there's just so much detail that goes into all this. So as far as precipitation, what does this look like at the surface? Well, you know, let's go back to the GFS. Okay, this is what the GFS shows. Okay, drops this crazy trough, really amplifies it across the southern U.S. and then it connects right here, probably feeds in a lot more cold air, and then we just got multiple pieces of energy pinwheeling around this trough. Okay, so a lot of blue, right? What does this look like at the surface? Same thing, we'll start for Tuesday morning. Well, here it is. You got a storm system associated with the blue you saw on your screen ejecting across the middle of the country, cold air here. So you get a big time winter storm across Nebraska in the middle of the country. Okay, here comes, just ignore this Hurricane Sally down here, which is what it would be for now. Okay, but that could get tangled into the picture. It could, if it's something that is in the picture when we get to this time frame. And this trough sort of dances around, and then you see these blue lines up here kind of digging down out of Canada. It's going to come down and really just enforce a lot of cold air into the pattern. And then all of a sudden, man, this looks like wintertime. We got this low pressure shooting out the Gulf. You got cold air right here. And anytime you see that 540 line, you know cold air is nearby. Not necessarily at the surface, it's nearby. And, you know, what do you know? It looks like, if you look really close, it looks like you got some blue in the North Carolina and Tennessee mountains. And then you got this piece of energy that kind of pinwheels down here. And I can tell it's there because of the little dip right here in the 540 line. And throw some snow flurries as far south as Alabama. Please do not tell everybody and your cousin in Alabama that it's going to snow the 24th and 25th of November. I'm just saying, if you look at the upper pattern and you combine it to what it's showing at the surface, the GFS shows some crazy stuff. Shows a lot of lake effect snow. Just shows a lot going on, folks. So that's a long range pattern update. We'll continue to do that. As far as what's happening today, the middle of the country is pretty quiet. We're getting some showers across the southeast. And we're getting a lot of energy up here in Quebec and Ontario. A lot of it's missing the lower 48, and Maine and is not. New Brunswick, you're waking up to a lot of rain. Maine, a lot of rain. You got some beneficial rains in the I-95 corridor overnight. Let me know if you got some decent rains in that area. UP of Michigan getting some showers. And then we're getting a big storm system moving into the Pacific Northwest all the way down to Northern California. A little bit of snow adding up in the higher elevations. So watches, warnings, and advisories. Because of the system flying through to the north, it is kicking some winds up for the UP of Michigan, even high wind. What is that? That is high wind. Yeah, high wind warnings up here in northeast Minnesota. Pretty wild stuff. Dense fog advisories for the deep south. A lot of moisture in place, and we got some winter weather advisories scattered about across the Cascades, even a little bit in the Rockies here. So as far as, excessive rainfall, I mean, there's not a risk of it today. In fact, I was a little surprised, but for the Pacific Northwest, but I don't think they're expecting heavy enough totals to put that there. But the risk of thunderstorms, you do have a general risk for the Pacific Northwest all the way down to Sacramento, and then some areas along the Gulf coastline could get some thunderstorms. But as far as severe weather, folks, I wouldn't expect it. The southeast, just on and off showers. I think most of this rain will head off the coastline, the Carolina coastline this afternoon for the Carolinas. We'll continue just to get some showers and maybe some storm activity for extreme southeast Louisiana, the coastal areas of Mississippi and Alabama, maybe even the far western panhandle of Florida. And then we could get just some showers that could pop up again in the Carolinas today. But that's about it. And we could get some showers that could move a little bit further north for tomorrow morning along the Gulf coastline. We'll watch for that. The northeast, this system will pull out, and then another system will probably move in. And this is going to be common in the northeast this week as troughs dig into the northeast, but not that far south. So, as we're getting into this evening, some more rain showers will greet you guys across interior New England. How far towards the coast will they get? Probably not very far. But as we're getting all the way into tomorrow morning, we could be dealing with some more showers in Maine and maybe some snow flurries up here in the higher elevations of the Adirondacks and just Vermont, New Hampshire, and New York. So the south central U.S., pretty quiet weather day. We've already talked about the rain along the Gulf Coast. It'll just be hanging out with you guys most of the day and night. But the rest of the south central U.S., I mean, it's pretty quiet. The snow is definitely going to be melting like crazy across the southern high plains today. But, that's pretty expected. The north central U.S., that system is flying to your north. Now we could get some rain switching to a little bit of snow in the interior UP of Michigan. I wouldn't write anything home about it. Some gusty winds with this system flying to your north. And after that, gets pretty quiet overnight into tomorrow morning. Quiet stretch of weather. Now, the western U.S., most of everybody is quiet except the Pacific Northwest. We have a lot of energy moving in. Not a lot of cold air associated with this at all. So you got to get way up there in higher elevation for this to be snow. And then once the main push of rain moves in, we're just going to get on and off showers and maybe even some thunderstorms across the extreme western U.S. or western sections of Oregon and Washington State. Even northwest California will continue to get this throughout the next 24 hours. And some snow will slip into the higher elevations of the Rockies and stuff like that. Rainfall between now and the next day. Some of this is snow in the higher elevations, but Salem going for about a 1/4 inch, Eugene about a 1/2 inch, Seattle 1/4 inch, Eureka maybe 1/2 inch to 1 inch. Yeah, and then snowfall, you got to get way up there, guys. Way up there, nothing unusual as far as the lower elevations. This is not any kind of early season winter storm or anything like that. So this is typical stuff out in the Pacific Northwest. Temperatures will be held down for certain areas, but for most part, a lot of areas are above average temperature-wise. I mean, all the way up into Maine is above average. Most of this area, the only area that, is locked into some late fall, early winter kind of conditions is the Great Lakes region. It'll be quite chilly with the winds, some areas will cool down. I think your temperatures might actually drop this afternoon to below freezing in the UP of Michigan. So, you could get a dusting of snow if it does start snowing, but temperatures out west, pocket of cooler air just because of this snow on the ground. It's picking up on the snow. I think what's pretty wild here is Oklahoma. 70s in the panhandle of Oklahoma. If you get to the far western county of Oklahoma and Texas, it's saying highs only in the 30s and 40s because of the snow on the ground. Pretty wild stuff. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and y'all have a wonderful day. Well, real quick, let me see if this updated. It did. So now we have a 40% chance of something developing down here. That stinks. I missed it. So people are going to watch the update on the tropics, and then, dang. Anyways, happens all the time. God bless all y'all. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye.